and welcome to the afternoon session of Dtec Forum powered by Entrepreneur Middle East. For all of you who might have joined us only now, I just want to repeat that Dubai Technology Entrepreneur Campus Dtec is a purpose-built technology hub wholly owned by Dubai Silicon Aces Authority, and it is designed to support young technology entrepreneurs through the provision of one-stop company setup and co-working, and it also provides a wholly nurturing ecosystem for young ventures. There have been quite a few very successful Dtec forums over the years, and over the past few editions, we had the honor as Entrepreneur Middle East to partner with them and organize these events. Our afternoon panel session will focus on the boom of e-commerce throughout 2020, and we have amazing panelists to tell us more how they managed the rapid growth that was caused by the COVID-19 crisis, and most of us focusing on online services for all kinds of needs throughout the year. Therefore, our topic is offline to online, taking advantage of the e-commerce boom. And I have the honor to welcome Khalil Alami, CEO of Telr, and a Dubai-based online payment processing gateway, Rayan Osseiran, founder of Shorages. It is also a Dubai-based on-demand storage and fulfillment provider that helps e-commerce companies and online sellers store and distribute their products. And Renaud de Gonfreville, CEO of Ziwo, a Dubai-based software company that simplifies call management in contact centers. Hello, everyone. I'll just give you the screen, not the floor, the screen for a few moments to say hello to our audience.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for having this very nice get-together with all these fabulous speakers organized by Dtec. It's a pleasure being here. We are very excited. Like you said, I'm Khalil Alami, and I am the CEO of Telr, the online payment gateway based out of the UAE. We work in the GCC, and I look forward to a very nice panel discussion with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalil. Rayan?
Thank you, Tamara, for first having us. I think we have a fabulous set of speakers here, especially combining the different aspects of e-commerce. First, Khalil with the payment side of e-commerce and the payment gateway when it comes to e-commerce. Renaud when it comes to obviously customer service and call center satisfaction levels. How do you do that for e-commerce? And obviously us at Shorages, we handle a lot of the on-the-ground dirty work, as I like to call it, when it comes to picking, packing products. So I'm sure, and I'm looking forward to hear all the insights across these different verticals in e-commerce.
Thank you. Renaud? You're muted. I'll have to kindly request you to unmute. Yes.
Yes, thanks, Tamara, for the opportunity. Obviously, a huge thing which is happening in an unprecedented crisis. Retail, whether online or offline, is a huge opportunity for many companies here and the way forward. So obviously, at Ziwo, we are very much in the customer experience, which includes the customer support service, but not only. But I will come to that later. So thanks for the opportunity. Great.
Thank you all. And as Rayan said, these are all different aspects of an e-commerce cycle. When we all received the package that we were so looking forward, experiencing an online shopping, a joy of online shopping. These are all the people in the background and their companies and services making it happen. The growth of e-commerce sales, as you all know, has been accelerated in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I believe, actually, I do know that each of you has experienced a rapid increase of demand for your services. So let's go back to the very moment, March 2020. And if you could all describe me your experience of how it all started for you and developed from there on. I believe you had quite demanding and successful businesses up to that point, but let's try to catch that rapidly rising curve from March 2020 and understand your experience with it. Who would like to start? Khalil, you want to say? Yeah.
Sure, sure. Uh, Sure thing. So back in time, March 2020 is, as you know, is just a little bit over 6 months ago. Although it feels probably for everyone, not just me, it's a lifetime ago. It seems like over years ago, due to the at least in our sector, the COVID-19, like you mentioned, is a very heartbreaking and very a negative impact on humanity, on economies, on societies, and different aspects. But on the flip side, it had a stimulant effect of a positivity statistically on our let's say fintech slash e-commerce industry. So there was a huge increase in the day-to-day transactions that has been observed on our dashboards from our perspective. A good number of businesses had shifted into their business from a traditional, maybe retail store or brick and mortar into an e-commerce platform, and they needed to do it fast. The lockdowns came in, not just in UAE, the smart lockdowns that happened, but all throughout the world. There was restricted curfews that were implemented throughout the region. Customer behavior had to shift. The customer behavior significantly shifted towards e-commerce because you had people that are afraid to go out, sitting at home, trying to be healthy and protect their family, but at the same time, they had day-to-day essential needs that they needed to fulfill. So in the beginning, we saw a huge shift. Even adopters that we've seen adopt this e-commerce purchases or e-commerce orders that have historically never touched a credit card or never even opened the internet other than maybe browsing some news. Older age people. So we saw that shift in the behavior of the consumer, and with that we had to immediately be able to keep up as that pandemic grew stronger. And and we saw this need towards digitization of all business types to adhere to the customer behavior changes and to the needs of the customers, and in order to maintain their business as a whole. So that was our role. That's what we've seen, and we've tried to support that. And I'll talk more about that probably later on throughout. So that's our perspective from Telr.
Mm-hmm. Rayan, do you want to start? Actually, maybe we should go with Renaud because it goes to start call centers, and then we come to you.
Sure, I think that sounds good.
Yeah, so March 2020, it sounds like it was years and years ago, but it was only a few months back. But it was not that big change for us, and it was a big change for customers. We're a tech company. We develop software, so normally we are 60% home-based people. We've got developers and business developers in many parts of the world, so we are used to manage the people remote. So going from 60% to 100% was not that big deal. I mean, we are all equipped, and we had already worked on some emergency planning and business continuity action. So it was not a big deal for us to move 100%. But obviously, most of our clients, they were not prepared, and some of them, they were not at all prepared. That was dramatic. So when from one day to the other, you need to move all your employees from an office environment to home, and you've got all these problems of connecting to the internet, or even having a laptop, which is not the case for all of our clients, and in customer service call centers, it's very common to have only desktops. So you have obviously a disruption in your customer service. So it was a big thing for us to help our clients to move in this new standard. It was not easy. Some of our clients had to make very instant decision to continue to serve their clients with good standards. Also, it was a good test for us because we had so many clients that were calling us and telling us simply, we don't have a business anymore. So Can you help us? Can you suspend the contract for some time, and we'll try to see what the future brings. And obviously, in such a situation, such a crisis, the first thing you think about is, okay, how can I help my client to continue in the business? So obviously, we went completely out of all the contracts and tried to be as flexible as possible, helping the people by moving their agents from office to the home base. And it was a good experience because you really test your values. You test also the ability of my own employees. They were super supportive. I mean, I didn't necessarily ask them to do that, but they were so supportive in some cases. I was really impressed by this attitude, or we are all in the same difficulties and crises, so we want to help. That was really insightful as an organization.
Thank you, Renaud. Rayan, what has been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, as the guys mentioned, March was for us really a glimpse into the future when it comes to e-commerce sales and e-commerce penetration. Traditionally, since 2017, we've seen e-commerce, at least in this region, be around 3 to 4% in terms of penetration, due to a lot of reasons. Not a lot of brands being online, not a lot of people having or knowing how to be involved within e-commerce or how to buy online and all that stuff. And essentially what COVID had done, especially with the lockdowns, is force a lot of the demand on one side to use and adopt e-commerce. So we saw definitely increases in demand where a lot of people were forced to know how to order online, but also from a supply side, brands that were traditionally offline now have been forced to kind of go online. Specifically in April, I can recall when we had the lockdown, simply overnight, we saw order volumes increase of around 300%. This was something that was very difficult and challenging for our team, obviously, and it was a all hands on deck type of situation where every single employee actually had to go down to the warehouse, even though we were under lockdown, to pick, pack, and process orders. One of the main reasons for this was before COVID, we had a client that was selling hand sanitizers online and was mostly involved in the sanitization business. And as soon as the lockdowns happened, their business suddenly increased significantly. So sanitizers went up, sale of sanitizers, that was driving business mostly during the early days of the pandemic, especially when other industries and other segments began to drop, like you see fashion, for example, declining because people are not going out anymore, so they don't see the need to purchase clothes. So while it was challenging for us, there were definitely a lot of lessons learned over there, and it was very useful insight to how the market will eventually look like. Thankfully, we were kind of on the positive side of how things turned out, but I would say not a lot of businesses were that lucky in aspect to actually be on the positive side of COVID.
Thank you. Let's go into maybe the main lessons that you have grasped from that period when it comes to the shock from one side, and from the other side, the rapid growth in demand for your own services that you could use maybe today to advise entrepreneurs. You know how they say this surprised us all. It's the first crisis I think that we have all experiencing at the same time. And thanks to the technology, today it's a global crisis that we could all communicate on a daily basis and understand and learn what's going on in other parts of the world. So what are your main learnings from that period of shock and rapid sudden growth or decline, either from your team and your own business or from your clients that we could maybe use in whatever next challenge could be?
I guess I'll go ahead. So that's a very good question, Tamara. And you know, we have been working at home since March. We have not actually gone back even until today to the offices. You know, given our, I think we've learned that, you know, our employees are a main priority. They need to be safe. And that was our main priority throughout when we first started. However, our customer interactions are also very important, and they come from multiple sources. So we being an online, generally we operate through online channels. We don't actually sit face to face with clients, and that was a positive thing for us. So when we went to work from home completely 100% in all of the cities that we operate in all of our offices, we made sure that the resources that we use are up to date. They can handle the volume. We can track and configure different customers online through the different platforms that we use, our CRMs, our support systems. One of the things that we faced a challenge for a few days in, how do we move our telephony system from a physical in all of our offices into a virtual one? And we reached out to a startup that did that for us, and all of a sudden we were completely 100% within a few days. In all the cities that we have offices in, we are 100% at home. Nobody needed to go back to the office. We're fully operational with no cutoffs and what have you. So I believe that we've always felt that our employees are our biggest asset, and I think the pandemic has shown that. Now, at the same time, we made sure that follows through into our client experience. So the required flexibility, the speed, the transparency that we embedded into our customers' journey, we made sure that it's there. It continues to be there. So that was one of the major challenges that we've seen. Now, managing that task, managing those employees, our partners, was great because we had a competent HR department, and we saw how important the HR department is in such a situation. Some people view the HR department as a cost center, while it proved that it can be a lifesaver in different times. So what also was a very big challenge is while everybody's working from home, working from home has no boundaries. There's no time to drive to your office and back, so you cannot disconnect. So you're overworking 12, 14 hours a day. And for that, we made sure that we had that team spirit, the social interaction. So we made sure that every week we have an hour for all the employees to just log on, have a video conference that has nothing to do with work. Just have a cup of coffee, and just discuss social aspects, interact socially in order to relieve that stress. And I believe that this was one of the things that we focused on quite extensively, and that reflected on how we perceive ourselves, how our employees are acting with our customers, in a whole positivity in such very stressful times. I hope that answered your question in the way that you wanted, but I believe this was a key factor for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add a sub question so then the two of them can also answer. What is interesting for me, and I believe that you've faced that quite a lot, and I remember in March, April, even May, etc., a lot of people in e-commerce telling me, a lot of my friends, a lot of my entrepreneurs are calling me now because they want an e-commerce store now immediately. Their business is not online, and that was a huge challenge for everyone. And I remember them telling me, I'm handling my own business and I don't want to say no to people, and I'm trying to advise them and help them how to set up an e-commerce store and everything that goes in the circle, but it's like not possible in a month now or like in March. So have you had that challenge and simply people not being that prepared for the crisis as, for example, your team was?
Absolutely. And this was one of the major stopping points of people's digitization journey from offline to online. And what we did there is we created this ability for them, because they're not ready. We created this ability for them to issue payment links or e-invoices through social commerce or through WhatsApp, through SMS, through whatever it is, in order to get them to that journey. And meanwhile, we worked very hard in order to launch one of the best e-commerce platforms right now. Today, you can go to Telr shops, a product of Telr, and you can set up your whole e-commerce store in 5 minutes with no need for anything. Just go online to telrshops.com, set up your store. There's themes, templates, ready, everything to go. All you need to do is just upload your products, and that's it. And you're done. And with 5 minutes, you have cash on delivery, and you have the Telr payment gateway that you can use, to accept electronic payments and e-commerce transactions. So that was our challenge throughout this pandemic. While we are working to maintain and build that business, in parallel, we created this product that filled this gap, because like you said, that was the main challenge. Everybody wants to go online, but they don't know how. They're not ready. And that's why we created this new product that does it in 5 minutes. It's fully feature full with everything that they need.
Khalil, for this, do they have to have a license and a business bank account and all that? Because that's a different. That'd be the main obstacle.
That's the different story. Yes, obviously it's geared towards businesses that have a trade license, but it could be a sole proprietor. It could be a single, these entrepreneurship or consultancy, licenses. They need a bank account, yes, in order for us to pay them. But that covers so much. But then there's small part, and this is something that I believe is part of what is going to be addressed in the next, post-pandemic. How do we get these entrepreneurs that are not registered, but they have social commerce capabilities, somebody that has a craft that is being sold over Instagram or WhatsApp? How do we get those banked? How do we get these digital payment services that they don't have a bank account, maybe just a personal one, they don't have a trade license? How do we capture that into the ecosystem? And I think this is a very major part of the post-pandemic challenge that we will be solving.
Exactly, because what we saw as well is a lot of individuals, as Tamara mentioned, reached out to us and they wanted to set up their bank account to an extent where it actually became very overwhelming for us with all these individuals reaching out. And we actually, as soon as they reach out to the website, they immediately receive some filtering questions, which is, A, do you have a license? B, is it a UE license? C, do you have a bank account? And if not, then it's like, go get these and come back to us after 4 to 5 months, because that's how long it's going to take for you to get these stuff.
Absolutely. Unfortunate. This is very unfortunate, but I think there are many steps towards, solving this issue. We've seen neobanks come up where you can open a bank account online in a few minutes. So I think there are solutions towards that, but we need some time. There's the regulation part, there's the banking sector, and there's the fintech. We're all working together. Hopefully, we can reach a state not too far in the future where we can actually take those in and cover that gap.
I think it's an important point that we mentioned here in cover. Renaud, tell us your experience both internally and externally.
Well, I would say that there were two big types of challenge. The first one was the technical challenge from our clients, because many of them, particularly when it comes to telephony, they were not in the cloud, they were all on premise. So we have seen a lot of our clients reaching desperately and asking them, like Khalil was explaining, to move the telephony part in the cloud, which in the region particularly is extremely complicated. So we were able to do that, to give access from the cloud to all the countries in the GCC, and so that their agent and support agents, they were able to answer the call from the computer. So that was a discovery for most of them. We had new clients reaching, asking for the same thing, to continue to give proper customer support. We were surprised that some major names in the e-commerce, they were not having any more customer support. I will not mention any names, but some big players. So they were not ready, definitely. So it has accelerated in a way the transition to the cloud, which is a trend for many years now, but it has now forced everyone to move to the cloud, which I feel it's a good thing, because the cloud allows you to unleash really a lot of things which are beneficial to the customer experience. The other challenge was on the people. In this region, we tend to believe that the technology is going to solve all the problems, but obviously it's not true, because you've got a human being component, which is also very important. It's important because it can make a lot of difference. I've got this example of a friend working the luxury items, and they didn't have an e-commerce platform, and they didn't have the time to do that. But the employees in the boutique, they became very inventive, because they started to take orders on WhatsApp, over the phone, and they were making the fulfillment and packing directly in the boutique because they had no people to come in, and they were arranging the delivery by themselves. Obviously, it's not necessarily what you want to do as a brand, but at least they were able to continue the business, and all this solution was coming from the ground, from the people in the boutique. So that was really interesting to see the engagement of the employees. And yeah, as a company experience, that's also good because it really bound your people, and it allows some of the employees to make a name for themselves when you are the one that continue the business for the company. For one organization, also the fact that on the tech side we had no issues to move completely 100% for home base, but really the social component is a big issue, because after even few days, the people you feel they become demotivated. It's not they like to come to the office to interact with each other and so on and so forth. So we try to compensate that. I've got just an example. We've got this tradition when there is a birthday in the office, we have a cake and we all share that. So we had kind of virtual cake parties. We were delivering cakes to the home employees, and we were grouping around a video call, and we had the same type of interaction. So we try to keep this social link, and I think that's very important. And the tech is enabling you to do a lot of things, but at the end of the people are doing the business. So that's super important to me.
I agree. For us as well, at PNC Publishing is a company behind Entrepreneur Middle East. We've been working from home also since March, and we are mainly working from home. And it's what's highlighted throughout the crisis is the trust that you have in your people, that they will deliver wherever they are. And it's really the strength of the people around you, that plus technology, of course, that can push a business through this. But I do agree with Khalil that somehow working from home has become life at work, and it simply doesn't end. So let's look at the future. Rayan said COVID gave us a glimpse into the future when it comes to e-commerce, but also I believe that COVID-19 showed us that we might not have an idea at all what the future might bring. And it can take us by surprise again and again and again. What are you focused on now at the moment? I believe recovery phase, at least in the UAE, luckily, and the region. The region is doing really well when it comes to preventing the virus from spreading, second, third wave, etc. So what are you focused now at the moment? How do you see 2021? What would you advise peers in your particular industries or in general in the e-commerce sector? Khalil, shall we go with you? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Tamara. That's great. Looking at the recovery, and as it kicks in harder throughout the UAE, I mean, we've been very lucky by a very great recovery so far. And I think the recovery in the region, like you mentioned, is going to kick in harder and harder as we go along. The harder the recovery, the harder the competition is going to be in maintaining what we achieved. So retaining the customers and winning new ones would require a much faster pace of improvement. We've seen, the development cycle of our products, of our services that are offered needs to be much faster, especially after the recovery, because, people are not willing to wait anymore for anything. They want everything right now, and their attention span is so little. So therefore, we believe that, that companies that will be able to provide more of a complete solution are the ones who will be able to win, and they, where they focus. So we believe in the near future we will be seeing a higher demand on the payment sector, which will organically open to new opportunities of different financial service transformations, ProTech, customer experience. This is where we are focusing. and that's why we want to be more sustainable, more accessible, more resilient, more agile, more user-friendly and inclusive. And this is how we adopted this early on by launching our new e-commerce platform of Telr shops, to be able to provide all of that gap in that market. So that's really what we will be focusing on as the recovery kicks in. And to be honest with you, what I would advise, our peers and our colleagues in different post recovery, is to really focus on the customer experience. The customer experience is proved to be the gold mine of any product that is on the market. And I'm sure Rayan has more insight on that.
I mean, yeah, certainly, as you mentioned, Khalil, a lot of our focus today has been also on mainly two things: expanding the verticals that we work on, and also the process itself. When it comes to the expansion of different business verticals, currently what we offer is basically storage, picking, packing, and delivery. So a wide range across the supply chain spectrum. Nonetheless, there are additional services that you can look into. For example, how can we as a business kind of tap into what Amazon's doing? Because the likes of Amazon and Noon, these guys are very large marketplaces. They're obviously here to stay. So how can we provide a service that can cater to these players? And what we recently found out, for example, is actually a lot of sellers cannot store very large stock in Amazon warehouses, simply because Amazon warehouses are short on space, and they just want their sellers to store, let's say, a week's worth of inventory and then replenish on a consistent basis. So we started looking at, here as a business, how to actually provide this replenishment service for these different sellers and merchants that are selling on Amazon. So for us, that's one thing, looking at Amazon players. And then you have the other side of the e-commerce spectrum, which is niches or businesses or boutique brands that are selling direct to consumer. And these are brands that we've catered to before, who sell directly through their website, and we offer the full supply chain for them. But again, there are still other verticals that we can expand to, such as maybe customer service. Since a lot of these brands are located outside, so they want some local customer service or local call center support that can reply to customers whenever they call asking or inquiring about their orders. And since we are the operations side, so we have visibility on that operation, it seems like it's something that makes sense. That's when it comes to kind of the client journey and adding value to the client. But internally, the way we are working through this pandemic as well is focusing on our internal process. We are still a very new business. We've been in the market for a bit over a year now. However, the pandemic has forced us to focus on our bottom line and focus on profit, even at such an early stage, because the investment, let's say, landscape is not so great these days. So thankfully, we were, for example, able to break even and actually start generating some profit just by focusing on our process and making our process more efficient when it comes to processing more orders using less resources.
It's interesting when a crisis hits at different stages of development or evolution of one business. I will ask you that in the next question. Overall learnings as an entrepreneur, not only entrepreneur in the e-commerce sector, but in general. But let's first hear from Renaud.
Yes, for us, we were lucky because our value proposition was strong even before the crisis, and it's even stronger now. What we're aiming at is to improve the customer experience. So both Rayan and Khalil outlined the fact that the customer experience is so important, particularly in the e-commerce, where the difficulty to differentiate is even more compared to the brick and mortar. So the customer experience, and it appears in all the studies, it's a major point of investment for most of the brands. But the customer experience is, what is it exactly? Is when you have an issue and you want to reach a brand, you need to give an answer which is accurate, which is very fast, But it's not only that. The people, they want the human touch and the personalization. So that's really the value proposition that we are working on and helping the brand to do that. But now with the COVID, it's even more complicated to deliver that, because you've got this mix of work from home and work from the office, or work remotely on the go. So I mean, our mission is still the same, our value proposition is the same, but it's now even more complicated to do that because of the disruption in the organization. So our focus remains the same, to develop fantastic tech to serve that mission and to fulfill that mission, and help the brands to have great customer experience.
Thank you. As I said, let's give our overview as an entrepreneur in general, not only an entrepreneur in the e-commerce sector, but in general, what has this crisis showed us about us, basically. How would you assess the current market? Be it customers, we talked a lot about the investment side, everything that goes into building one successful business, and what would be your advice for your peers in all other sectors in general going forward?
So from my perspective, pandemics and crises like this are considered authors of a new era of business. They are a major paradigm shift. Now, all these different sectors have to adapt to a new business model due to this paradigm shift or to this COVID. So the COVID-19 pandemic period has, ensured and showed the world that the payment gateways and the e-commerce platforms are the backbone of any economy, especially a digital one, because without them, they could not transact. Now, there is a lot to do and to develop in the e-commerce world. It's not fully matured in our region. Digital payments are the future. So there's no doubt about, us not going back to cash. There is a vision set by the government. There is a vision set by the millennials in the economy that where, cash is going to shrink and hopefully no longer be available and everything is going to be digitized. Now, from that perspective, my advice and what we've learned is customer CX UX, customer experience, user experience, and not just as Renaud mentioned, where it's just a interaction between the customer and that. No, I think this will disappear. You will no longer need to talk to anyone for a customer experience. Everything is going to be digitized. So it's all about how I, as a customer, interact with that brand digitally without talking to anybody to achieve what I want and be completely satisfied and have a great user experience and to come back and create that loyalty. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, as a startup or as an entrepreneur during these, unforeseen times, we've never lived this before, at least in my age, cash reserves and how to maintain your cash flow was the key of survival. Now, we were lucky that we were in an industry where it was positively impacted, so our cash flow was good. But at the same time, we had to maintain that because after that, we don't know what's going to happen. There's so many variables. There's so many surprises that are, throughout the timeline. If you look at March until today, that nobody would have expected it. So we made sure that we are very well handling our cash very well and smartly. At the same time, we needed to maintain the sanity, because the sanity of our team is what leaves that value proposition on the table for the customer. So human capital, cash management, and the overall ability to be agile and move and be fluid as the situation develops and changes on a daily basis. And there's no doubt that digital payments are the future. And they will play a vital role in shaping the whole e-commerce platform in the years to come.
Perfect, thank you. Rayan, what about you? Overall learnings from about the market in general, as an entrepreneur in general.
Well, I mean, for any business, I believe COVID was a master class in risk mitigation. It taught us a lot about risk mitigation and how to manage risk. And not for our business specifically, but I do have a lot of fellow entrepreneurs and fellow colleagues whose companies performed very poorly overnight, not due to anything that they did wrong, but simply because their industries vanished. If you look at travel, tourism, and the likes. So these events, such as COVID, are impossible to predict, and they're impossible to plan for. And I believe today the biggest adversary to any business and to any entrepreneur is actually time. Because the longer that you succeed time and the longer that you survive time, your business has a better chance of succeeding. Because as long as you're surviving, either the market is going to change in a way where it fits your product and it fits your idea, or you as an entrepreneur have pivoted in order for your idea to meet what the market requires. Now, obviously, surviving time is something that's easier said than done. It requires building a sort of business that is lean and that is anti-fragile and that does not break when it's put under any stress. So for me personally, anytime I have to make a strategic or a business decision, I always like to keep in mind is when things go wrong, what is the impact this decision will have on my business? Will it break our business? So I'll give an example here where from the get-go we decided to kind of be very asset light in our approach to building a fulfillment center, even though a fulfillment center is a capex heavy investment. But we've managed to make certain decisions that have allowed us to build it in a lean way, such that if a crisis ends up happening, something that is similar to COVID, but this time we end up on the negative side of things, that our business won't break. And that's how I personally build my business. So I would say that's the main lesson, where we have to build businesses that simply will not break due to investors not coming in or market prices going down by 10, 15%, and elements like that.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Another great piece of advice. Renaud, shall we conclude with you?
Yeah, I don't know if you see it on the camera, but I'm sufficiently old to have known the 2008 crisis. I was in Dubai at the time, and it was not overnight like the COVID-19, but it was pretty fast, because at the moment companies understood that the world crisis would hit Dubai, and suddenly the cash disappeared from the market, people shut down, etc., etc. It was very, very violent. So, I mean, the COVID-19 is not the first crisis that humanity encounter, and it's definitely not the last one. My takeaway of that is that at any moment you need to expect the unexpected, whether it comes from a disease, from market condition, from a new disruptor, a new competitor appearing on the market. But you need to prepare yourself and to prepare your organization and to prepare your business model to the unexpected and to the disruption. So the best way to do that is to embed the agility in everything that you are doing. Fully agree with Khalil. The cash is king, as we know. So managing the cash flow and always anticipating the risk, imagining where the next problem is going to come. That's the mindset that you need to have as an entrepreneur or as an employee. It's the same. We all hope for the best, but we need to plan for the worst. That's my advice. Keep an eye on the cash, keep an eye on the bank account, and always understand if your value proposition is still relevant to a changing world. So value proposition, product market fit is something extremely important if you want to sell something, but the world keeps on changing. There are new competitors, new pricing point. So you need to constantly validate that relevance and to keep it on top.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all three of you. This was a very insightful panel, and I'm sure our audience has learned a lot. Thank you for joining Dtec Forum, and we will come back with a Q&A session with all of you in just a little bit. Until then, please do reach out with your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.